Today we delve into the life and mysterious end of Pontius Pilate, the man who allowed the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. We will see how this man's actions led to one of the most pivotal events in history, forever changing his life and making his last days a tragic tale. In this narrative, we will explore the Bible texts and delve into historical writings to understand how Pilate was caught between the authority of Rome and the demands of the Jewish leaders to crucify Jesus. We will see how his decisions were fraught with tension and moral conflict, and how he attempted to wash his hands of the crucifixion. Join us as we unravel the gripping and haunting tale of Pontius Pilate. This story dives deep into lessons of power, guilt, and the lasting impact of one's decisions. Let's get started. In the Gospel of Matthew, Pilate's hesitancy is vividly depicted. Faced with a decision that troubled him, Pilate washes his hands before the crowd, declaring, "I am innocent of this man's blood. It is your responsibility." This moment is captured in Matthew chapter 27, verse 24, symbolizing his attempt to distance himself from the consequences of the decision to crucify Jesus, despite the pressures from the Jewish leaders and the crowd. In Mark's account, Pilate seeks to leverage a festival tradition of releasing a prisoner to the crowd. He presents them with a choice between Jesus and Barabbas, a known insurgent, hoping they would choose Jesus. However, influenced by the chief priests, the crowd demands Barabbas's release and Jesus' crucifixion. Pilate's capitulation is evident as he ultimately orders Jesus to be flogged and crucified, as described in Mark chapter 15. Luke adds layers to this political drama by including an interaction between Pilate and Herod. In Luke chapter 23, Pilate, recognizing that Jesus is a Galilean and thus under Herod's jurisdiction, sends him to Herod, hoping to shift the responsibility. Herod, after mocking Jesus, sends him back to Pilate, who then publicly declares Jesus innocent, but still succumbs to the crowd's demand for crucifixion. John's Gospel provides a more detailed dialogue between Jesus and Pilate, emphasizing Pilate's philosophical inquiry into truth and his role in the events. Jesus' response, "My kingdom is not of this world," highlights the spiritual kingdom Jesus refers to, contrasting sharply with Pilate's political concerns. Despite finding no fault in Jesus, Pilate's final decision reflects a complex interplay of fear, political survival, and public pressure, ultimately leading to the crucifixion. Through these accounts, we see a man caught between the machinery of Roman governance and his own assessments of justice and truth. Pilate's story is a poignant reminder of the personal and political turmoil that can arise when moral conviction clashes with societal pressure. Let's continue by exploring the historical context surrounding Pontius Pilate, drawing on references from notable historians like Flavius Josephus and Philo of Alexandria, and understanding the governance and political dynamics in Judea during his time. To truly understand Pilate's actions and decisions, it's essential to consider the historical backdrop of his governorship. Judea, during Pilate's tenure, was a region fraught with political tension and cultural clashes. Governed by Rome, the area was a melting pot of various factions, each vying for influence and control. Flavius Josephus, a Jewish historian, provides significant insights into Pilate's rule. Josephus describes Pilate as a harsh and uncompromising ruler, often clashing with Jewish customs and religious sensitivities. For instance, Josephus recounts an incident where Pilate introduced imperial images into Jerusalem, provoking a major outcry among the Jews who viewed it as idolatrous. Pilate's response was to threaten violence, showcasing his rigid approach to governance and control. This event, among others, highlights the constant friction between Roman authority and Jewish tradition. Philo of Alexandria, another contemporary historian, also paints a picture of Pilate as a man of severe disposition. Philo describes Pilate's actions as marked by bribes, insults, robberies, and executions without trial. His account emphasizes Pilate's role in perpetuating fear and unrest among the Jewish populace. This perspective aligns with the gospel narratives, portraying Pilate as a figure often embroiled in conflict and controversy. Understanding the political dynamics of Judea under Roman rule is crucial. Judea was a province with a significant Jewish population who held deeply religious beliefs and traditions. The Roman authorities, including Pilate, were tasked with maintaining order and collecting taxes while also respecting local customs to prevent uprisings. This delicate balance often led to tension and conflict, as Roman practices frequently clashed with Jewish laws and traditions. Pilate's governance can thus be seen as a series of tightrope walks, trying to assert Roman authority while navigating the sensitivities of the Jewish population. The political dynamics of the time required a governor to be both firm and diplomatic, a balance that Pilate struggled to maintain. His decisions, especially those involving Jesus, were influenced by this complex interplay of political pressures and the need to maintain public order. Let's delve into the intense dilemma faced by Pontius Pilate and the fateful decision that followed, focusing on the Jewish leaders' demands, Pilate's efforts to release Jesus, the symbolic hand-washing, and the balancing act between justice, public order, and political pressures. The Gospels depict a scene fraught with tension as Pilate grapples with the demands of the Jewish leaders and his own judgment of Jesus' innocence. The Jewish leaders were adamant in their accusations against Jesus, insisting that he claimed to be the King of the Jews, a title seen as a direct challenge to Roman authority. This claim put Pilate in a precarious position, as dismissing it could be interpreted as neglecting a potential threat to Roman rule. Pilate initially attempted to release Jesus, recognizing that the charges against him were driven more by envy than genuine criminality. In Luke chapter 23, Pilate declared Jesus innocent multiple times, stating, "I have found in him no grounds for the death penalty." Despite this, the Jewish leaders and the crowd persisted, demanding crucifixion. To appease the crowd and fulfill his duty as a just ruler, Pilate resorted to a customary gesture of mercy during the Passover festival, offering to release a prisoner of the crowd's choosing. He presented them with a choice between Jesus and Barabbas, a known insurgent. Expecting that the crowd would choose to free Jesus, Pilate was taken aback when they chose Barabbas instead. This moment is captured in Matthew chapter 27. Facing mounting pressure, Pilate performed a symbolic act of washing his hands before the multitude, declaring, "I am innocent of this man's blood. It is your responsibility." This act, found in Matthew chapter 27, verse 24, was an attempt to publicly absolve himself of the guilt associated with the condemnation of an innocent man, shifting the responsibility to the crowd and the Jewish leaders. Pilate's decision to eventually hand Jesus over for crucifixion was a complex balancing act. On one hand, he had his sense of justice and the recognition of Jesus' innocence. On the other hand, he faced the very real threat of civil unrest and political repercussions from both the local Jewish authorities and his superiors in Rome. The Gospels highlight this internal struggle, showing Pilate's repeated attempts to find a way to release Jesus while avoiding a riot. In John chapter 19, Pilate's dialogue with Jesus further complicates his decision. Jesus speaks of a kingdom not of this world, leading Pilate to ponder the philosophical implications of truth and power. Despite his philosophical musings and personal inclination to release Jesus, Pilate ultimately succumbs to the external pressures, prioritizing public order and political stability over his own judgment. The story of Pilate's dilemma and decision is a poignant reflection of the challenges faced by those in positions of power, especially when moral convictions clash with political exigencies. Pilate's legacy is thus a reminder of the intricate and often painful choices that leaders must make, navigating the turbulent waters of justice, public order, and political pressures. His attempt to balance these forces ultimately led to one of the most significant events in Christian history, underscoring the far-reaching impact of his decision. As we continue to explore the narrative surrounding Pontius Pilate, we encounter a fascinating and often overlooked figure, Pilate's wife, Claudia Procula. Her involvement in the events leading to Jesus' crucifixion is brief but significant, marked by a divine warning through a dream, which serves as a symbol of conscience amid the unfolding drama. According to the Gospel of Matthew, Claudia Procula experienced a troubling dream about Jesus on the very day of his trial. In Matthew chapter 27, verse 19, we read that she sent a message to her husband Pilate, urging him to have nothing to do with that righteous man, as she had suffered greatly in a dream because of him. This dream stands out as a clear divine intervention, offering a warning about the innocence of Jesus and the impending injustice. Claudia's dream can be interpreted as a divine warning, a message from God meant to steer Pilate away from condemning an innocent man. In the context of the time, dreams were often seen as significant and prophetic, carrying messages from the divine realm. Claudia's urgent plea to Pilate underscores the gravity of the situation and highlights her role as a bearer of divine insight. In many ways, Claudia Procula serves as a symbol of conscience in the gospel narrative. Her message to Pilate represents a moral voice, urging him to reconsider his actions and the consequences of condemning an innocent man. Despite the pressures and political machinations surrounding him, Pilate is confronted with a clear and personal appeal to justice and righteousness through his wife's dream. Claudia's intervention is a poignant reminder of the often overlooked voices that call for justice and moral integrity in times of crisis. Her dream and subsequent plea to Pilate highlight the inner turmoil and conflict faced by those close to positions of power, offering a glimpse of the human and divine elements at play in these critical moments. The account of Claudia Procula's dream enriches the narrative of Pilate's decision-making process by adding a layer of divine warning and moral challenge. It underscores the idea that even amid political and social pressures, there are moments of divine intervention that seek to guide individuals toward righteousness and justice. Claudia's role, though brief, serves as a powerful testament to the enduring struggle between conscience and expediency, a theme that resonates deeply within the broader story of Jesus' trial and crucifixion. Now let's turn to the profound and solemn event of the crucifixion of Jesus. This moment is central to the Christian faith, marked by significant actions and supernatural phenomena that underscored the gravity of the event. We will explore the inscription on the cross, Pilate's internal struggle with guilt, and the extraordinary occurrences that accompanied Jesus' crucifixion. As Jesus was led to Golgotha, the place of the skull, to be crucified, Pilate ordered an inscription to be placed above him on the cross. This sign read, "Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews," as described in John chapter 19, verse 19. The inscription was written in Aramaic, Latin, and Greek, ensuring that all who passed by could read it. This act was a significant statement by Pilate, perhaps a subtle defiance against the Jewish leaders who pressured him into condemning Jesus. It proclaimed the charge against Jesus, but also, in a way, recognized the title that Jesus' followers believed to be true. The Jewish leaders protested this inscription, asking Pilate to change it to say that Jesus claimed to be the King of the Jews. However, Pilate firmly responded, "What I have written, I have written," as recorded in John chapter 19, verse 22. This statement suggests that Pilate was asserting his authority and perhaps grappling with his own guilt over condemning an innocent man. By leaving the inscription as it was, Pilate might have been attempting to convey his inner conflict and acknowledge, even indirectly, Jesus' identity. During the crucifixion, several supernatural phenomena occurred, emphasizing the significance of Jesus' death. According to the Gospels, darkness fell over the land from noon until 3 in the afternoon. This extraordinary event is recorded in Matthew chapter 27, Mark chapter 15, and Luke chapter 23. The darkness was a powerful sign, interpreted by many as a manifestation of divine sorrow and judgment. Moreover, the moment Jesus breathed his last, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, symbolizing the removal of the barrier between God and humanity. This event is mentioned in Matthew chapter 27, verse 51, Mark chapter 15, verse 38, and Luke chapter 23, verse 45. It signified that through Jesus' death, access to God was now open to all, a foundational belief in Christian theology. Additionally, the earth shook, rocks split, and tombs broke open, with many holy people who had died being raised to life. These supernatural events, described in Matthew chapter 27, verses 51, 53, further underscored the cosmic significance of Jesus' crucifixion. They served as signs that something extraordinary had happened, impacting not just those present, but the entire created order. Pilate's struggle with guilt over Jesus' crucifixion is implied in these gospel accounts. Although he had washed his hands and declared his innocence, the supernatural events that accompanied Jesus' death would have been impossible to ignore. These occurrences could have reinforced Pilate's internal conflict, reminding him of the gravity of condemning a man who was not only innocent, but divinely significant. The crucifixion of Jesus stands as a pivotal moment in history, marked by signs and wonders that testified to his identity and mission. Pilate's inscription on the cross and his subsequent guilt reflect the profound impact that Jesus had on all who encountered him, even those who played a role in his death. The supernatural phenomena during the crucifixion served as divine affirmations of Jesus' significance, leaving an indelible mark on the hearts and minds of all who witnessed these events. As we move forward, we turn our attention to the aftermath of the crucifixion of Jesus and its profound impact on Pontius Pilate. This chapter explores Pilate's growing guilt and torment, and how Christian tradition and apocryphal sources describe his later life. In the immediate aftermath of Jesus' crucifixion, Pilate's sense of guilt and inner turmoil likely intensified. The supernatural events that occurred during the crucifixion, such as the darkness that covered the land and the tearing of the temple curtain, would have left a lasting impression on him. These signs were clear indications of the significance of the man he had condemned. Although Pilate had publicly washed his hands to signify his innocence, the weight of his decision could not be so easily cleansed from his conscience. Christian tradition and various apocryphal sources offer differing accounts of Pilate's later life, reflecting the enduring impact of his role in the crucifixion. Some traditions suggest that Pilate was deeply tormented by his involvement in Jesus' death, leading to a tragic end. According to one apocryphal account, the Acts of Pilate, Pilate was eventually removed from his position as governor and faced great misfortune. This narrative suggests that his inability to escape the guilt of his actions contributed to his downfall. Another tradition, found in some Eastern Christian writings, portrays Pilate in a more sympathetic light. These sources suggest that Pilate and his wife, Claudia Procula, who had warned him about Jesus in her dream, later converted to Christianity. Claudia is even venerated as a saint in some Christian traditions, particularly within the Eastern Orthodox Church. This narrative provides a redemptive arc to Pilate's story, indicating that he sought forgiveness and found redemption through faith. Further apocryphal texts, such as the Gospel of Nicodemus, expand on Pilate's interaction with the risen Jesus. These writings often reflect early Christian attempts to grapple with the complexity of Pilate's character, painting him as a man caught in a moment of immense historical and spiritual significance. While historical records do not provide a definitive account of Pilate's later years, the varying traditions highlight the lasting legacy of his actions. The Christian narrative emphasizes the transformative power of Jesus' death and resurrection, suggesting that even those who played a role in his crucifixion were not beyond the reach of divine grace and forgiveness. Pilate's growing guilt and torment after the crucifixion illustrate the profound and enduring impact of his decision. Whether viewed through the lens of tragedy or redemption, Pilate's story serves as a powerful reminder of the far-reaching consequences of our actions and the possibility of repentance and transformation. The aftermath of the crucifixion, as reflected in both historical and apocryphal sources, underscores the deep moral and spiritual reflections prompted by this pivotal event in Christian history. As we continue our exploration of Pontius Pilate's life, we now turn to his political downfall and eventual death. This chapter examines the reports made to Emperor Tiberius accusations of mismanagement, the controversial use of temple funds for an aqueduct, and the mystery and speculation surrounding Pilate's demise. Pilate's tenure as the governor of Judea was marked by several incidents that drew the ire of both the local Jewish population and his superiors in Rome. One of the most notable controversies was his decision to use temple funds to finance the construction of an aqueduct. This act, aimed at improving water supply for Jerusalem, was seen by many Jews as a profound disrespect to their religious practices and a misuse of sacred money. The reaction was swift and violent, with large-scale protests erupting in the city. Pilate responded with force, sending soldiers disguised as civilians to quell the unrest, which resulted in significant bloodshed. Reports of Pilate's harsh governance and these violent suppressions reached Emperor Tiberius. The growing discontent among the Jewish population and Pilate's inability to maintain order without resorting to extreme measures reflected poorly on his administrative capabilities. Accusations of mismanagement and brutality began to mount, painting a picture of a governor who struggled to balance Roman authority with the sensitive religious and social dynamics of Judea. The final blow to Pilate's career came after a particularly brutal crackdown on a Samaritan uprising. According to the historian Flavius Josephus, a large group of Samaritans gathered at Mount Gerizim, believing they would find sacred artifacts buried there. Viewing this assembly as a potential rebellion, Pilate ordered his troops to attack, resulting in numerous deaths. The Samaritans lodged a formal complaint to Vitellius, the governor of Syria, who then forwarded the accusations to Emperor Tiberius. Pilate was summoned to Rome to answer for his actions. However, before he could stand trial, Tiberius died in AD 37. This change in leadership further complicated Pilate's situation. His recall to Rome marked the end of his governorship, and he was replaced by Marcellus. The details of Pilate's life after his removal from office remain shrouded in mystery and speculation. Some sources suggest he faced execution or committed suicide, driven by the weight of his guilt and the political disgrace he suffered. Other accounts, particularly those found in apocryphal writings, offer varied and often conflicting narratives about his fate. Despite the lack of concrete historical evidence, Pilate's political downfall and the circumstances of his death continue to be subjects of interest and debate. His story, intertwined with the momentous events of Jesus' trial and crucifixion, leaves an indelible mark on history, reflecting the complex interplay of power, justice, and personal conscience. To delve deeper into the narrative of Pontius Pilate, it is essential to consider the theological reflections on his role in the Passion of Christ. Pilate's actions and decisions during this critical period are rich with themes of guilt, redemption, and justice, offering profound insights for believers and theologians alike. Pontius Pilate's role in the Passion of Christ is a focal point for theological reflection. As the Roman governor who authorized Jesus' crucifixion, Pilate is a pivotal figure in the narrative of Christ's suffering and death. His interactions with Jesus, the Jewish leaders, and the crowd highlight the complexities of his character and the moral dilemmas he faced. One of the central themes associated with Pilate is guilt. Despite finding no fault in Jesus, Pilate succumbed to the pressure from the Jewish authorities and the crowd, ultimately sentencing an innocent man to death. This act of injustice is captured in the Gospels, particularly in John chapter 19, where Pilate repeatedly expresses his reluctance to condemn Jesus, but ultimately caves to external pressures. His symbolic act of washing his hands in Matthew chapter 27, verse 24, underscores his internal conflict and attempt to absolve himself of responsibility. This gesture, however, does not mitigate his guilt, serving instead as a powerful reminder of the consequences of yielding to societal pressures at the expense of justice. Redemption is another profound theme intertwined with Pilate's story. Christian theology posits that through Jesus' crucifixion and subsequent resurrection, humanity is offered redemption and salvation. Pilate's role in this divine plan, though marked by human weakness and moral failure, is seen as a necessary part of the fulfillment of God's will. This perspective invites believers to reflect on the nature of redemption, suggesting that even acts of profound injustice can be transformed by divine grace into opportunities for salvation and forgiveness. Pilate's narrative, therefore, serves as a reminder of the potential for redemption, even for those who commit grievous errors. Justice, or the lack thereof, is a third key theme in Pilate's involvement in the Passion of Christ. The trial and crucifixion of Jesus are often viewed as the ultimate miscarriage of justice, where an innocent man is wrongfully condemned. Pilate's failure to administer true justice, despite his authority and power, highlights the limitations of human justice systems and the susceptibility of leaders to corruption and influence. This theme resonates deeply within Christian theology, which emphasizes that true justice is ultimately achieved through God's righteous judgment and the sacrificial act of Jesus on the cross. In reflecting on Pilate's role, theologians often explore the interplay between human frailty and divine purpose. Pilate, a figure of authority and governance, is portrayed as both a participant in and a victim of the tumultuous political and social dynamics of his time. His actions, driven by fear, political expediency, and a desire to maintain order, underscore the tension between human agency and divine sovereignty. As we reflect on Pilate's lasting impact, we are reminded of the paramount importance of justice, integrity, and responsibility in our own lives. The lessons gleaned from his story urge us to confront our ethical dilemmas with courage and to uphold justice even when it is difficult. In doing so, we honor the enduring legacy of the Passion of Christ and strive to live out the principles of our faith with unwavering commitment. In conclusion, the narrative of Pontius Pilate is more than a historical account. It is a profound exploration of the human condition. His story challenges us to examine our own actions and decisions, to seek justice with integrity, and to embrace the responsibility that comes with power and authority. Pilate's lasting impact on Christian faith and collective memory serves as a powerful reminder of the timeless struggle between right and wrong, and the enduring call to act with courage and conviction in the pursuit of justice.